There is a question buried underneath every South African election, every coalition negotiation, every press conference where the DA smiles and shakes hands with the people who have spent decades looting this country into the ground. And nobody is asking it loudly enough. Why does the Democratic Alliance fight like a party that believes everyone deserves a fair chance in a country where the ruling party has made it abundantly clear that fairness is not the game they are playing? Why do they bring philosophy to a knife fight? To answer that, we have to go deeper than politics. We have to talk about Friedrich Nietzsche, the Übermensch, and what happens when a beautiful idea gets taken to its absolute extreme in two completely opposite directions, by two completely different movements, with ordinary people caught in between. In the late 19th century, Nietzsche looked at Europe and saw something that terrified him. God was dying. Not literally, but culturally. The old moral infrastructure was crumbling, and he asked the most important question of his century. If there is no external authority, no cosmic rulebook, what happens to human beings? His answer was that most people would collapse into the herd, into mediocre conformity. But his hope was the Übermensch, the one who transcends, who creates their own values, takes full responsibility for their existence, and instead of collapsing, rises. One of the most electrifying ideas in all of philosophy, and it has been used to justify two of the most catastrophic political projects in human history. The same idea, two movements. One used it to build death camps, the other used it to build the Democratic Alliance. And both got it wrong. Hegel gave us the framework. History moves in dialectical swings. One extreme generates the opposite extreme as a reaction. The pendulum does not stop in the middle. It swings all the way to the other wall. The Nazis asked not who can transcend, but who is already superior. The Übermensch became a birthright, not an aspiration, stamped into your DNA. Then the Holocaust happened. The pendulum hit that wall and came flying back. The liberal tradition swung to the opposite absolute. Every human being is capable of reason, growth, and self-determination. Beautiful idea. Democracy will prevail. Philosophical DNA of the Democratic Alliance. One extreme said, only we can transcend. The other said, everyone can. Both are absolutes. In the real world, absolutes break. And here is where Plato quietly enters the argument, because Plato said something that neither extreme wants to hear. Not everyone is meant to lead, not because of race or blood, but because of nature, temperament, and calling. Some people are philosopher kings, born and built to govern. Some are warriors, some are craftsmen, some are gardeners, some are huisvrouwens, and a society that pretends otherwise, that insists every person is equally suited to every role, is not being generous. It is being dishonest. The gardener is not lesser than the king, but a garden run by kings and a kingdom run by gardeners both end in ruin. The DA has built functional municipalities, delivered services, fought corruption in courts. They represent the best institutional attempt at accountable governance South Africa currently has. But a good institution operating on the wrong philosophical premise in the wrong environment will lose. Not because it is corrupt, because it misunderstands the opponent. The premise is that everyone, including cadres who have looted state enterprises into shells, is ultimately reasonable. That the right arguments and legal challenges will produce good faith responses. This is the Hegelian trap. The liberal democratic consensus that emerged after the Second World War was itself a dialectical overcorrection to fascism. It had to overcorrect, but overcorrections do not produce truth. They produce the opposite error. The Nazis were wrong because human beings are not unequal by birth. The liberal universalists are naive because not all human beings are operating in good faith. In a country where the looting is systemic, naivety is not virtue. It is a liability. One fighter believes in the rules, the other is reaching for a chair, and the tragedy is that everyone in the crowd can see it except the fighter who is losing. The DA wins arguments and loses ground, files correct legal papers while the state is dismantled around them. And to truly reckon with this would require something philosophically devastating, admitting that not everyone is a potential Übermensch, that some systems have chosen to operate outside the bounds of reason, and the appropriate response is not more good faith extended to people who have spent 30 years proving that they have none. This is where the Hegelian dialect becomes a trap. The DA absorbed a post-war liberal antithesis so completely they cannot see past it. The ANC has always known this. They have navigated 30 years of governance failure by relying on the opposition's philosophical commitment to good faith engagement. Every time the DA runs to court instead of pulling a constitutional lever, the ANC wins another 6 months. The pendulum stays stuck against the liberal wall, and the country pays for it dearly. The Übermensch, in Nietzsche's original formulation, is not an ideology of superiority, it is an ideology of responsibility. The Nazis took it to one absolute: exclusion and extermination. The liberal universalists took it to the opposite: infinite good faith extended to systems that have forfeited any claim to it. Neither produced Hegel's synthesis, and while infinite good faith does not produce gas chambers, it produces something else: a country being slowly, systemically dismantled. Not in a single explosive moment, but in the grinding, incremental destruction of water, power, schools, hospitals, justice. Hegel's synthesis is not naive universalism, and it is not murderous exclusion. It is clear-eyed realism, the recognition that human beings are capable of transcendence and that some have chosen not to pursue it, and that a politics built for the real world must hold both truths simultaneously. The tragedy is not that the DA is bad. The tragedy is that they are good at just the wrong game. South Africa does not have a shortage of extraordinary people. It has a shortage of a politics that matches them. Plato would have recognized this country immediately. He would have seen the gardeners governing, the warriors filing legal papers, the philosopher kings driving taxis, because no institution was built to find them and elevate them. He would have seen a society where the sorting mechanism broke down, where patronage replaced merit and survival replaced calling. The gardeners are governing, the warriors are filing legal papers, and the entertainers are in the palace. And their society acts surprised when clowns appear on the camera after inviting them into the palace. A civilization that loses the ability to distinguish between leadership and performance eventually becomes ruled by performers. Plato would have said what he always said: a city is only as healthy as the alignment between what people are and what they are asked to do. This country is full of people already living the Übermensch without having read a word of Nietzsche, building where the government neglects, educating where the state has abandoned, protecting where the police have retreated. They have arrived at Hegel's synthesis on their own. The problem is they have no political vehicle that matches their energy. What is needed is a new philosophical premise, past the Nazi thesis, past the liberal correction, into the synthesis. Human beings are capable of extraordinary things. Not all of them are choosing to be, and a politics honest enough to hold both truths fights harder and with far greater effect. History does not remember the ones who were reasonable when reason was useless. It remembers the ones who understood the moment clearly enough to act on it. The Hegelian dialect is not finished in South Africa. The pendulum is still moving. The question is whether it finds its synthesis here, in this generation, or keeps swinging while the country pays a price. Plato's Republic did not fail because the idea was wrong. It failed because no one was brave enough to do the sorting. Honestly, South Africa faces the same test, a politics that starts from truth. The ANC is not a good faith actor. That moves to strategy. Rewrite the terms of engagement. That builds to purpose. The goal is not to be right, it is to win. Because winning means hospitals that work, schools that function, and a country that survives. That is Hegel's synthesis. Finally arrived at. Clear eyes meeting iron will. A country saved not by philosophy alone, but by the courage to act on it.